Welcome to the Cowtown Cats Lacrosse Podcast, where we talk all things Panther City Lacrosse Club. Now here are your hosts, Nicholas and Andy.
Well, Panther City was coming off another bye week, but also coming off a win against New York, looking to keep the momentum, going to Las Vegas to take on a very hungry Desert Dogs team. Welcome everyone to the Cowtown Cats Lacrosse Podcast. I'm Nicholas, of course joined by Andy.
Hello.
Bye weeks in sports are supposed to help teams as the season goes on. Unfortunately, in my opinion on it, it's kind of led to a very bumpy road for us this season. A lot of starts and stops, but hopefully this is the last one for a little while. But this is the first one we've been coming off that we looked really good and really steady and kind of got the flow going for the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you said, that bye week right after the 14-12 win against the Riptide kind of quelled any momentum we might have had, or one would think. Thankfully, Las Vegas was coming off a bye week too, off of a win of their own against the San Diego Seals. So in that sense, there's a bit of an even footing coming into this past weekend.
Yeah, and Vegas was obviously looking to keep their momentum going off of that win. But real quick, we are going to get into the game here in just a second. I did want to take 1 minute to point out that it was your birthday this last weekend. It was actually the same day as the game.
Indeed, yeah. Had it been a home game, that would have been pretty fun. But yeah, it was pretty nice, and it was late enough in the day to where I could watch at least I think a decent chunk of the fourth quarter live. So that was pretty cool. Yeah,
well, obviously, happy birthday to you. Hope you had a good day with family and friends, and hopefully, obviously we all know the results of this game. So I think Panther City knew they wanted to give you a treat as well.
Yeah. I was very thankful for that, and my San Antonio Spurs beat the Bucks that night too, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow,
so it was a good night all around.
I was about to say they both knew what was going on, but. Obviously, happy birthday to you. So,
thank you.
But the game we got and the game we were expecting are two different things, and we'll get into that as we go through this. But coming into this game, a few notes. Matt Hossack, this is his first game back from injury.
Yeah, he had been out with I don't quite remember whether they called it like a lower body thing or maybe around his abdomen. I don't quite remember, but. It was definitely nice to see him out there. You could see, I think, even beyond what he does on the floor, he's a steadying influence in the locker room, and just with his leadership, being captain.
Yeah, it was good to see him back on the field. And then also, they pointed out before game time, this was Callum Crawford's 250th career game, which is just kind of mind-boggling to think of.
Yeah. I mean, you think about there's not a ton of games in each season, and over the years that number has gone up. So it's really remarkable that he's been able to not only play for that long, but play at what I would say is still an elite level. And we'll go into that a bit more as this episode goes on.
Yeah. He definitely is showing us that it doesn't matter how many seasons you've been there. I mean, if you got the skill, anything can happen. But yeah, so we're coming into this game. I did kind of wonder how we would look after another bye week, and they showed us right away. It was starting off in the first, really early on. Crawford, I mean, you just talked about him. He kicked things off with a quick goal. Not only a minute, 2 minutes in, put us up 1-0 before we knew it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a great start, especially given that we usually seem to spot the other team a goal even when Panther City wins. So seeing Showtime kind of kick things off on the right field was pretty good. And leading up to that, I think there were maybe 2 or 3 shots on goal that the team had missed, but we were able to fight and get the offensive board. So I think even further back than the Riptide win, there was definitely we wanted to look good, especially given how Las Vegas beat us at home last time, and Showtime and the rest of the guys definitely showed that.
Well, I think that's something they probably kept in their head most of the night, because yeah, like you said, they were getting really good offensive rebounds. I mean, the defense really didn't have to do too much early in because, I mean, it felt like we were on the offense pretty much from the get-go. Crawford getting that goal, and then not a few minutes later, Will Malcom gets in on the action. He gets a great goal, up 2-0.
Yeah, really pretty much right after Crawford did, a minute later. One thing to point out that will kind of become a recurring theme, Showtime's first goal was a power play goal. And one thing about Panther City, they've been really good in power play opportunities this year. And Las Vegas has a lot of trouble staying out of the penalty box. But yeah, Malcom, he utilized the pick to go low, something that he tends to do quite a bit. And what was hit, along with Donville, with the so-called marquee offensive players on Panther City getting hot early is really good to see. And on the flip side, Las Vegas, Dame had a good game and a good start, but I gotta say, he didn't have to do a whole lot early because a lot of Las Vegas's shots weren't even hitting the goalpost or bouncing off his pads. They were hitting the glass.
Yeah, they were just kind of shooting all over, and it's not that their offense looked off keel or anything like that. They were just not really getting good shots off or rushing shots, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's probably credit to the defense, and like we said, Haas's return definitely kind of helped give them spark. So yeah, a lot of credit to our guys for making things difficult, and then Vegas just had a rough go of it early on.
Yeah, well, and that rough go would keep going on from there because obviously we'll talk about him a lot during this episode, but Crawford, I just put down Crawford doing Crawford things. He got a behind the back pass to Caputo. Caputo gets a goal. We're up 3-0.
Man, those are probably my favorite plays. As much as I love seeing behind the back goals, is when he hits Caputo down the middle or whoever may be cutting for that behind the back pass. Man, it looks smooth off for both the passer and the shooter.
Yeah, and we've talked about it before. Crawford just makes it look just so easy. He does it without even thinking. And of course, Caputo's famous for being in the right spot at the right time. So, he knew where his spot was. But yeah, so, Crawford obviously getting the offense going. I didn't even put down my notes. They were coming out not only hot, but aggressive with everything. And with those offensive rebounds, they were really making sure basically the Vegas defense kept on its toes the whole time during especially those first 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to use a football term, the time of possession was definitely in Panther City's favor for most of that first quarter from what it looked like. And like we said before, when Las Vegas did have the ball, the shots they were getting weren't clean. They were either sailing on them or getting deflected. The few that did get to Dame, he did do a great job of blocking. So it was just a good job for us all around.
Yeah, keeping them scoreless like that, especially early on, was really good defensively. But again, Crawford, man of the night, he gets another goal. I put down a term you may know. He was starting to heat up. Goes up 4-0.
Yeah, 4-0 with, I think we had more than half the quarter left to go at that point. And the great thing about that, and this is where we go back and forth on whether face-offs matter or not, but that goal by Crawford to put us up 4-0 was right off after a Ronan Puech face-off win. So it was great to see that lead to basically pay immediate dividends for the team.
Well, yeah, and it goes into we're starting to reach the point, and I'll touch on this a little bit more later, but we're starting to reach the point where the offense has gotten enough play time with each other and enough practice with each other that things are starting to come a lot easier.
Yes.
And Crawford, as we pointed out before, he's kind of that veteran leadership that they need out there, and he did it again right after. There was his next goal. He gets another goal, up 5-0, but it's just, again, it's another one of those. He was backing up the defender, and it's almost like he faked one side real quick and then turned around and shot and got the goal. But it's just, he made it look so easy, just backing up the defender like he was not. It's like basketball,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He basically had the guy posted up, and then I guess he faked enough one way with his shoulder that the defender bit and was just able to turn around, spin off of him pretty easily for a shot right in front of the net.
It makes you kind of wonder because, obviously we talk about box lacrosse kind of being a mix of hockey and basketball. If, maybe when they're not doing lacrosse things, if they practice basketball moves or stuff like that kind of keep them in the motion and try different things.
I know one interesting thing that Crawford's brought up on Donville's podcast is that growing up, I think he picked up lacrosse a little later, and he played a bit more aerial team sports. I don't remember if basketball was one of them, but he mentioned that he played volleyball a lot. So it's obviously still a very athletic sport, but a very different skill set. And you see it show when he plays how he's probably doing things that someone who's only played predominantly lacrosse and also hockey, he's doing things that those players may not necessarily pull out of their bag of tricks.
Well, it's stuff that he's learned over time too. I mean, that experience counts for something. But at that point, early on, I mean, we're halfway. We finally got to the first TV timeout, and it was 5-0. Hat trick for Crawford already.
came 7.5 minutes too late is what I had in my notes.
Right.
Yeah, everything was going well. The aggression. I think there was one face-off that we actually lost, but the defenders swarmed whichever Desert Dog player had the ball, and we got it back again. And that is what might have led to one of Showtime's goals in that first quarter. So just everything connecting and going well for the team.
Right. Well, that TV timeout came at a good time because it gave Vegas a chance to kind of like regroup a little bit. And it was still early on. I mean, at that point, 5-0, you can kind of fight back and kind of get a couple goals and get it a little bit closer than that. But that was definitely a timeout that Vegas needed, because right after that, they capitalized on it, get a score. It's 5-1. It's good to know that they weren't out of it yet.
Yeah, and that play that led to, I think it was Dylan Watson scoring their first goal. It was the kind of play that you expect to see out of a timeout. There was a ton of ball movement, trying to get the Panther City defenders moving around, a little discombobulated, until eventually they found Watson up top for that score. So good on Sean Williams and the Desert Dogs for not regaining their composure, but certainly helping stop the bleeding early on.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, and then after that, it just kind of slowed down. After that, it was good, kind of back and forth. Nothing really happening on either side offensively for Panther City or Vegas. But after a while, our offense kind of got back in the groove of things. And then Gauthier, so Gauthier gets a goal, puts us up 6-1, but it was just kind of a weird goal. Even the announcers were like, well, what happened? Because he shot it and it got deflected and it kind of just slowly bounced in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't, you could tell by Landon Kell's face, he had already given up 5 goals by that point, which isn't great. But then to get goal number 6 on him just by deflecting off of his pads, he had to feel for the guy. But I'm glad Gauthier got that, because I know I want to say it was the Riptide game, there was a goal that when he checked the defender's stick and the ball bounced into the net, he wasn't credited for that goal. So it was nice to see him get this one.
Yeah, well, and it counted just as any other goal. It was just kind of a weird shot, weird bounce. But that put us up 6-0. And then we're going to talk about it later, but there's 3 people who had really good nights. Will Malcom was definitely one of them. He got another great shot, put us up 7-1. I kind of put in my notes, I was like, do you guys listen to the podcast? Well, because I was just like, Will Malcom is somebody who I know can do all these things. Pretty much as we're going to talk about this game, I knew he could do that. But he wasn't showing that early on in the season. So it's like, for him to step up like this, especially early on, that was great. Going up 7-1, it was awesome.
Yeah, and especially in a game where Crawford was already going off so early, he didn't take his foot off the gas pedal and be like, okay, this is his time to shine. He's like, no, I can contribute and put points up on the board as well, make plays, the team, and he did just that with one of his classic change of direction drives to the goal since he's such a speedster.
Oh yeah, and it's good to see him getting that groove, especially with that offense. But then, it just seemed like the offense was clicking. Everything was just going our way. Right after that, I told you there was three people who had a big night. Well, Caputo was one of them. Not only did he get a rebound, but he got a rebound and shot behind his back and got a goal. I was like, come on, Caputo. You can't do anything much better. Put us up 8-1. That's pretty much how the end of the first ended. I mean, it was just offensively, it was just crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Landon Kells was pulled for the Desert Dogs backup goalie Joel Watson, and we have our mixed thoughts when like Damu gets pulled for McLeod pretty early, but with the score 8-1, it's like, okay, I get it. I get it, Las Vegas.
Well, and they had talked about it on the broadcast too, like, should they have pulled him earlier, this and that, but Las Vegas's goalie, I mean, I think both of them are still pretty young.
Yeah.
So they want to give them that experience of kind of going through the hardships. But yeah, at that point, it's like, okay, well, we should probably give him a break. But into the first, just crazy for them. And then the second, I mean, this whole rundown of the second is pretty much Panther City highlights. Not a minute into the second, Crawford gets another crazy jump shot, 9-1 at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Puce began the second quarter like he started the first with a nice face-off win, and yeah, Crawford's jumper. We just talked about how he likes to go airborne on a lot of his plays. He's not called Showtime for nothing, and that was actually in a 4-on-4 offense, which we seem to be pretty effective in as well. Certainly in this game.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, well, and it seemed like anytime we had a power play, we took advantage of it. Which, Vegas, we'll talk about penalties here in a bit, but yeah, Vegas had their fair shots as well. But yeah, so Crawford has a great goal. Malcom, though, again, not to be outdone, he's like, hey, I think he was probably thinking, hey, I know you're older, but I'm still young and can do a good job on my end. He gets another goal, 10-1. Just a great night for him so far.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to see that score that early in a game. I think there were over 13 minutes left in the second quarter, and just he went 5-hole on their backup goalie as well. And so it's funny, even with the goalie switch, it didn't really affect Panther City as far as we could tell.
Yeah, I mean, Vegas unfortunately couldn't stop anything at that point from us, but Vegas, not going down just yet. Their veteran on their team, Greer, he gets a goal. That's actually his 600th goal. So kind of a hats off to him. It was 10-2 at that point.
Yeah. He helped him and Watson and some of the other guys did what they could throughout the game. It was a good score from him. I don't remember whether they said Greer or Hellier actually lived in the DFW area in their off time. I don't quite remember.
One of them. I know they mentioned too about Greer. I think he was somebody who had thought about retiring after last season and decided to come back for one more season. So, I'm sure a game like this, isn't invigorating, but yeah, you have to kind of go through these tough games. But no, I mean, hats off to him for his 600th career goal. But I put in my notes, Crawford, not to be outdone. I mean, he's like, hey, I'm a veteran too, so here's another goal for me.
Yeah. It was like deja vu, another quick post up and then turn around and score, and it was just again, it was right off of the face-off. So credit to Coach TK and the guys for deciding to leave Push in there with the returns of Haas and Brent Minchell, because it's an area that he's definitely helped us out in tremendously.
Well, yeah, and it almost makes you think like, now we can keep him in that position as long as we need to. And then maybe in the future we can switch off on face-offs and stuff like that. So it definitely seems like they found a good alternative for our face-offs. But I mean, it just Crawford. I mean, he's just having a record night. Even the commentary was like, I don't know what to say. He just keeps scoring. But then again, the third person, Caputo. I mean, he gets another score. It's 12-2. At that point, there's still 10 minutes left before halftime, and we're up 12-2.
Yeah, put six times their score at that point. So, and we hadn't even gone over this since there's been such a flurry. Caputo's goal at that point made him the third Panther City player with a first half hat trick. Crawford got his really early on, and then Malcom got his. And so it just crazy that we had a game with three players that each scored 3 goals with so much time left. Just really showed how dominant. And at that point, they had actually subbed Landon Kells back in for Troll Boston because I think they were like, well, we might as well give our starter some experience, get them some runs so we can learn from this.
Well, and it's funny too that you talk about the hat trick because in New York, Donville had that first quarter hat trick, and they're like, oh, that's the fastest in the NLL. Well, Crawford's like, well, hey, I'm going to beat that. And he got that hat trick faster in the first quarter. So I don't know. It's just that whole offense, this game, I don't even know. I don't have words to explain what the heck happened.
No, yeah, it was just we were clicking on all cylinders on the offensive side, and the defense was playing great. Again, it seemed like, at least in that first part, Damien, he was making stops, and he didn't have a whole lot to have to stop just because of the defense forcing turnovers, playing Las Vegas's offense stuff. And then when Las Vegas was playing more aggressively on offense after that first time out, they were still really chaotic. Like the passes weren't crisp. They weren't, aside from a play here and there, they weren't really getting anything going. But we kind of, I guess you could say we kind of helped give them some help a little, a little after that.
Well, I was gonna say their offense kind of reminded me of us about 3 or 4 weeks ago when we were off kilter.
Yeah, absolutely.
But speaking of Donville, I mean, he wanted to get on the action too. I mean, he gets a great goal, 13-2. After that goal, though, I will say Vegas started to kind of get a little chippy with everything.
Yeah, I know. At some point, Mitchell lost his bucket and was going after Dylan Watson. And so both of them, along with Patrick Foley, ended up in the penalty box. And you got to figure, like, hey, the score's 13-2. There's a ton of time left. Players probably are, on Las Vegas's end, are probably going to start getting pretty testy.
Well, and we talked about this earlier, so and we'll touch on Mitchell again later on in the game, but they have an old saying. It says, act like you've been here before. Well, honestly, Panther City has never been in this position. Even when we blew out Vegas in our second game last year, like, we weren't up this much. And so it's like you can't let their chippiness get you to the point where you're sending multiple people into the penalty box. I think Medeiros also had a holding penalty around that time too. So it's just you gotta be the bigger man in the situation. I'm not saying you can't back down and don't step away if they're trying to fight you, but at the same time, don't let their losing get in the way of your winning. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's Brent Mitchell hasn't been in the NLL too long, but it does sound like has already kind of developed that sort of reputation based on what the commentators are saying.
Yeah, well, again, we'll touch on him again later, but at that point, it was 13-2. We talk about the offense so much. You touched about the defense. Honestly, Damoud had a lot of great block shots during that first half, and that was very apparent in the second. But unfortunately, Vegas finally broke through again. They got another goal, 13-3. And right after that, too, we got another penalty on us. So I was like, come on, guys. Let's not let Vegas, I know that we have a good lead, but let's not let them get any kind of momentum before halftime.
Yeah, Goodwin was called for an illegal cross check. Before then, we were playing great defense for, I don't know, it seemed like 4 or 5 possessions until Greer was finally able to score on David. You could almost hear like a collective groan from the Vegas audience each time, like, oh, we almost had it. We got it. And so, like, yeah, kudos to Greer for sticking with it. Again, he's a longtime vet in this league that's capable of a lot of good things. But yep, the scoreboard says it all. Like, he scored, but still 13-3.
I mean, it was 13-3, and I know we were kind of getting chippy and kind of, keep needing to keep our composure. But one man who kept his composure, of course, Crawford, again, gets a goal. That's a sock trick before the halftime. I mean, just unstoppable. 14-3.
Yeah, it's crazy being in. I mean, that was I want to say our second or third 11-point lead up to that point in the game, and just of course, you're surprised but not surprised when you see Crawford do that kind of thing. It seemed like he faked out the entire defense on that one too.
Yeah. I think at that point the defense, you think to yourself, the defense should probably try to do something a little different, either like double team him or I know you can't really do man to man as much. I mean, you can, and you try to play zone once they get into their offensive set, but you got to do something different.
Yeah, it's weird because, and this might be a little foreshadowing into the third quarter. But so if you play him man, he's such a good one-on-one player that he can just fake guys out and take them out. And then if you send a double on him, he's got the vision or eyes on the back of his head to where he's able to with those behind the back passes and other things to find the open man. And then if you play a zone, he's gonna get you with his deception, and if that zone is too soft. So it's just this was one of those games where they probably just had to tip their hat to him. One thing.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
I did want to point out, not related to Crawford at all, there was a play, my man Josh Medeiros. It looked like he had a great Lucy in transition and was gonna go in for a potential score or at least a shot on goal, but he blew a tire on the way and the turf monster got him. I was like, no, that was gonna be it.
That was gonna be his turnaround for the season right there. But no.
Yeah, he's playing good regardless. But it was. Yeah, you're so used to I'm so used to seeing him put points up on the board that I'm really pulling for him to get that first goal with this many games in already.
Oh yeah. No, I'm ready for him to kind of get pointing in the right direction for this season. But yeah, so sock trick for Crawford, and then Caputo again. Gosh, he gets another goal, adds it to. I mean, it's 15-3. It's the season high goals for Panther City, and it's not even halftime. We're just shattering everything with our offense in this first half.
Yeah, and even with how well the offense was playing, Las Vegas was really shooting themselves in the foot. I know Gagliardi was called for holding, which led to the power play opportunity. And even we were already on the power play. Watson had a shot on goal that I think it was just because he knew the shot clock was gonna go away. But I don't know the exact rule, but it didn't hit anything, and it went high enough to where it resulted in a delay of game penalty. So Caputo's goal where he dove in right in front of the crease was actually a 5-on-3 opportunity. And you can't give those up when in any situation, but much less when you're down 14-3.
Right. And leads into, again, that kind of frustration and emotion that's going into, Vegas playing at that point. Halftime 15-3. I mean, I'll let you talk for a second. What were your thoughts about the first half?
Strong defense. There was some chippiness that you really didn't want to see, because as fun as it is to blow teams out, you don't want guys to get too pissed off and to take some extracurricular activities. But yeah, that was easily the best I had seen our offense play certainly over half. A lot of it, yes, was due to Crawford's one-man brilliance, but everything was clicking in terms of Caputo being even more so of the right place at the right time guy. Donville, the one goal he scored was similar to a goal he had scored previously in the year, where he's curling off of, I think right after subbing in from the bench, and then just going into make it. Malcom, he had been a little more subdued recently, so it was nice to see him score. Push was looking great in the dot. We know it's impossible to win every single face-off. Not impossible, very difficult. But he did a great job. And then even when he lost the face-off, the defenders, Push included, would go after the ball quick enough to where there was a chance for us to force the turnover. So yeah, there, aside from maybe a few too many penalties for us than we would have liked, that first half was really all Panther City.
Yeah, that's what I put down to. I mean, the only negative I could find was just unwarranted penalties, just letting the chippiness get to us. I ended up in the sin bin too many times to let them not completely take advantage. Obviously, the score shows that, but it led to, hey, they know they can get to us. That's why I feel like certain penalties just were unwarranted. But all that to say, yeah, I mean, it was the Crawford, Caputo, and Malcom show all the first half.
Yeah, and here's a little I don't think I've ever done this officially before, or we haven't. But I'm gonna do some Andy's first half stats of the Mr. Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Andrews' first half stats of the game?
Yeah, because it was almost like we had plenty of stats for an entire game, even just after half an hour.
Oh man, cue the music. Go for it.
So, yep, there were 12 more shots for Panther City than there were for Las Vegas, 31-19. And again, we said Damien did a great job stopping the ball when it got to him. That is, if it even got to him, because we were either forcing the ball out of the Desert Dog sticks or just we got a ton of offensive loosies, which really helped increase our opportunities and limit theirs. Face-offs were even at 10-10, but again, that aggression from the defenders when we did give up the ball and the dot really helped us out and make up for it. Power plays. Las Vegas was 0 for 3, and Panther City was 5 of 8. So, we were up 15-3, 5 of those just being from power plays, and having a positive over 500 percentage is great. Had 9 more loose balls than them as well. We did have more turnovers, but that's a little bit to be expected given how much more often we had the ball in our possession on offense. And then Crawford, in a bit of foreshadowing, he had 12 first half points, most in a half in NLL history. So kudos to Crawford. We're not even done with the game yet, and we already got to tip our hat to him for breaking a half, not even just the first half, right? In any half, first or second half. So yeah, and Showtime was awesome.
Wow. Yeah, very first time ever, Mr. Andrews' first half stats of the game. But like you said, there was so much happening. I feel like Crawford is, I think you mentioned it earlier this year, he's in his LeBron era. He's, he's kind of hitting all these good strides so late in his career. It's crazy to think about. But all right, so we come out of halftime and we're thinking, okay, all we have to do is, bleed the clock, let the time run out. We go home with a win. Well, the offense, they had some other thoughts. Malcom, 24 seconds in, keeps his night going, gets a goal, puts us up 16-3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not only was that a goal, that was another power play goal. I think from something
from halftime.
Yeah, from something that happened right before the half. So, man, at that point, both Malcom and, we mentioned Crawford had 12 first half points. Malcom had 10. And so at that point, they're already working on double-digit point games, and so they were at 13 and 11 respectively, and still counting.
Yeah, and the announcers were kind of keeping an eye on things too. They thought a record night might happen, and it might have, to be honest. But we'll touch on Crawford's the rest of his night later on. But he, again, not to be outshined by Malcom, he gets just another crazy goal. I just put the only words I could put down were just wow. I mean, the night he's having, it was an absolute show from Showtime himself. 17-3. That was his 7th goal, 14th point of the night already.
Yep. And that's another amazing thing that he had that 7 goals, 7 assists up to that point. It showed that he wasn't just looking for his own shot. He was getting other guys involved too. Leading up to that, Liam Patton actually had a great interception. And Las Vegas, all things considered, they played us pretty well in transition that game. I don't remember us really getting many transition opportunities, if any. But it didn't matter for Showtime.
Yeah,
because he's just has such a great knack for scoring the ball. I think this was a goal where he snuck it right past Kel's shoulder to get to hit the opposite side that he was on.
Yeah,
it's almost like the ball was like a curveball going in just past the goalie. So yeah, at that point, like you said, 17-3, and it's like, yeah, what's the outcome of this going to be?
Well, yeah, and it's like he hit another level.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, first half crazy stats. Second half, he's like, "Yeah, I'll just keep it going." There was another penalty on Vegas right after that.
Yep.
And Crawford takes advantage again, gets a goal, puts us up 18-3. And I put this in my notes. They showed him on the bench afterwards, and he's casual. He's just, hey, whatever. Let's keep it going.
Yeah, it was very much. He's been in the league a long time. He knows what he's capable of. He showed some emotion and excitement after scoring a few goals, but yeah, he didn't seem too high on himself. Like, I don't know if he was counting in his head. He probably knew he had a pretty high point total up to that point. But yeah, you see him on the bench. He's just kind of ready for the next rotation or the next play. He did also get the in the halftime interview. He kind of gave some insight when they were asking him like how he keeps his mind ready or motivated after so much time, and he was like, "Well, I know I'm not the most athletic player anymore, so I kind of have to figure out where I can pick my spots and show what I can still do in terms of being a skillful player, not just relying on rushing past people like Will Malcom might be able to do."
Mm-hmm. Well, like you said, his field of vision is just excellent. I mean, he's able to like look at the defense, what the defense is giving him, and he makes those quick decisions. They're just like, okay, I know I can do this. I know I can pass over there. I know my outlet's over there, and that's what you get from a veteran. That's what you get from a veteran like him.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yep, 18-3 at that point. Once again, we had scored just 6 more points than they had, so pretty remarkable.
Well, and of course for us, I mean, the points keep going up, and we're just breaking our own record for the season. Something we hadn't seen the offense do all year, so it's kind of crazy. It's just kind of unusual to see, but it was a good unusual. But, Vegas trying to keep their energy going. They actually got a goal, and then actually got another goal pretty fast. And they had a quick little run of 3 goals. They break it to 18-6, and I'll put this down. At that point, I felt like maybe we were playing a little bit more relaxed. Maybe we were trying to slow things down at least. But Vegas kind of took advantage of that and goes on a little 3-goal run of themselves.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think a bit of it was probably Panther City being a little too high of how easy things had come for them up to that point. And Vegas, obviously, they're starting to get pissed off. Like, okay, we got to play for pride. This is getting a bit ridiculous. Jackson went 5-hole on Damude. Charlie Bertrand, who was one of their bright spots during the night, he actually pulled a Caputo where he picked up the Lucy off of Damude's save and leapt for a goal. And so at that point, it's 18-5, and obviously it's still a big gap. But that was Las Vegas's first run of consecutive goals. And then with Dylan Watson scoring again soon after, all of a sudden you go from 18-3 to 18-6, and no lead is necessarily insurmountable, no matter how comfortable you might be.
Yeah, and I think that's something, Coach TK will always address. He talked about multiple times in previous games where, maybe the team kind of got what's the right word? Like, not ahead of themselves, but just kind of like, oh, yeah, we got this in the bag. Mm-hmm. And maybe weren't as urgent and aggressive as they were earlier in the game. And so the other team takes advantage of that. And yeah, like you said, if they could have taken that momentum and continued, we might be talking about a different kind of game, maybe a little bit closer in the fourth. But thankfully, Vegas had another penalty. It seems like it just wasn't their night in the penalty category, because right after that, Caputo, I mean, he wants to add to his stat sheet too. He gets a goal, puts us back up 19-6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And on top of that, one thing we've mentioned that Panther City had been getting a lot of offensive boards. A big part of that was because we had an extra guy on the floor compared to Vegas, since they were in the penalty box so much. So Caputo scoring is it almost looked like a Happy Gilmore almost kind of shot, just winding up and hitting it in like it was a puck. One thing that did happen around that time, I know Hutchinson got hit pretty hard, and you saw him kind of hobbling to bench after. I don't know whether it was kind of a below the belt shot or a rib shot, but that was a bit of foreshadowing for things to come as well. Because even though Vegas, they were going on a little run, what accompanied that was they were definitely playing with a bit more fire in their belly too.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they kept their little run. They kept their offense kind of going at that point. They got a goal, cut 19-7. But shortly after that, we got a big penalty against Patton. I mean, we watched the replay a couple of times. Clearly an illegal cross check, but Vegas, like you said, maybe more chippy and more fiery in that second half than they, I don't know, than we expected. But that was a big hit on Patton. He was actually really hurt after that.
Yeah, he was down for a while, and you could just see the way his head snapped back. You're hoping that there wasn't any lasting damage. And that was I think it was a 5-minute major penalty on Gagliardi. Even right before that, when Watson got his hat trick to cut it to 19-7, I think in the bottom of the screen, I'm pretty sure it was Patrick Foley. He got pancakes, almost like a pancake block, like off the screen under the glass. I remember there were some Desert Dogs fans kind of like trying to get a better view of what happened. And poor Foley, soon after Patton took that hard hit, he took another hit, and God, he was down I don't know how many minutes. But since someone else, Panther City, I believe they've got 2 trainers. One of them was already occupied with Patton after taking that hit. So there was only one Panther City trainer looking after Foley, who was down on the ground for a while. So the Desert Dogs trainer actually came out to take a look at him too. And eventually he was able to get off, but you could tell he was not in good shape.
Well, at that point in the game, as a coach especially, you have to start thinking, okay, maybe we need to start pulling our starters, maybe not giving them as much play time as we normally would, because you want to leave healthy. You don't want their chippiness and these hits, taking out half your team before you know it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and at that point, the last 7 penalties were against Las Vegas. So you have to look from their point of view. Yeah, like on some level, they're probably still trying to win. But on another level, it's like, well, if we don't get the win, we're gonna make them feel this one.
Right. Well, shortly after that, it gave us a 5-on-3 advantage. Malcom, after a while, Malcom tried to get another goal. It was reviewed and overturned. It's another one of those goals we talked about in the New York game, where he went in and then reestablished, but because he was the first, I still don't understand that. I guess I don't know if there's a certain way we can look up the exact wording of that penalty, but yeah, it was just weird.
This one definitely kind of cleared things up for me more than the New York one did. Because in the Riptide game, I was like, wait, what's happening? And this one, I think if you're stepping out of the crease, the ball has to get to at least one other player before it gets to you. You can't catch it right after stepping out. Now, the nomenclature of that, it seems kind of weird if you step out of the crease, run 10 feet over, catch the ball. Technically, that would still be a violation, but it's not like you're catching it right after stepping out. So I'm not too sure how stringent or lenient they are on it. But
Well, it's probably something where they consider an extra pass or an extra possession with somebody else. Like that's the amount of quote unquote time for you to reestablish yourself back in.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Because it can happen really fast, or it can happen like this one where it was like a little slower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they had to go back in the replay more than I thought they would have in order to catch it.
Right. But unfortunately, that goal didn't count. And then, Vegas kind of took advantage of that, loss of momentum. They get another score, 19-8. Still not completely going away. Our lead was, 11 at that point. So we're like, I think we're doing okay still. But, we talked about it earlier. We're up 19-8. There's no need to kind of give into, Vegas's, I don't know.
Antics.
They're antics, to be honest. Yeah. Because he got into another fight, and it was just, again, unwarranted. And they're getting to him. And next thing you know, he's out with another penalty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was, I think at that point, there was already no Crawford. We'll talk about that after this. But, yeah, I know. Brent Mitchell was kind of instigating or trying to get into it with Greer, who was like one of the few guys that was doing a little bit of damage against Panther City. And it was pretty obvious, Greer's an older player. He's not what you would consider an enforcer per se. He's valuable to the team in terms of scoring. So credit to Greer for like, okay, I'm too old. I'm too old and valuable for this, probably.
Right.
But then Charlie Bertrand came in and responded in kind to Mitchell kind of wanting to get into it, and so they got into a little fracas. And I know the commentators actually gave props to Bertrand for kind of standing up for his teammate, being like, "Hey, you want to mess with someone? Pick on someone your own size, not our wily vet." Mm-hmm. So yeah. I didn't think it was necessary, and in the bigger scheme of things, since we didn't see Crawford at all after that, and even a little bit before then, I think that might have been the nail in the coffin in terms of seeing him again, which was unfortunate because he had the opportunity to make some even more history.
Right. So, the commentators mentioned it early on. He was on pace to break the record in points in a game if he would have played the full game. But I think, early on, people getting hurt. We have a pretty comfortable lead. I think Coach TK made the right decision. With him out, I think he even pulled Will Malcom out by that point because I didn't see a whole lot of him on the field either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you saw some of the other young guys like Goche get a bit more run. So, it would have been nice to see, but as a Lacrosse and Panther City fan, you're like, I've seen Showtime do pretty much whatever he wanted up to this point. I'm not going to be heartbroken if I don't see him do it 2 more times.
Right. Well, it's the same thing with any team. You don't want to risk the chance of, like, you've won this battle, but the season is, for the most part, the season's barely halfway over, and you still have a ton of games coming up. You're going to need these people, and so you don't want to risk anything happening to them in the long run. But we ended the third, 19-8. The start of the fourth, I will say the fourth went a lot slower for us. I think we started having a game plan of holding the ball longer on offense, and then on defense, just really kind of shutting things down to where we could bleed the clock a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Because at that point, we really kind of knew, okay, all we gotta do is hold on. Unless some just crazy madness happens, we got this in the bag.
I know. I was even surprised that, with the 12-point lead, Damude was still in net for a good chunk in that fourth quarter. I thought they would have given Cam McLeod run a little bit earlier, but he did make a great early save, and it led to Jason Knox showing up in the scoring column with a great goal from up top to get us to 20-8, and that was another power play goal. So
I mean, yeah, that's what I mean. These younger players getting a little bit more, work on the offensive end. He got that great goal. Most of the starters are kind of sitting on the bench now. 20-8, we feel pretty comfortable with it. And then, halfway through, Tony Malcolm's like, hey, I'll get a goal. In fact, I think that wasn't even in transition, was it? He was just playing offense.
Yeah, he was taking an offensive rotation. I wouldn't be surprised if him, Medi, and Goodwin each got some run just playing with in the regular offense so they could preserve Crawford and make sure he didn't get hurt. So Tony Malcolm started his career as more of a forward, so he's definitely familiar with playing in a regular 5-on-5 as opposed to trying to run guys down and pick his spot. So it's nice to see him get on the board.
Yeah, it's probably a good playing time. Again, it's good to get them some playing time on the offense because who knows what happens as the year goes on.
Right.
And they can get familiar with just how things go, just get in the flow of things. But, Vegas, they were trying to end things on a good note. They actually went on another mini run. It's another thing where, Panther City, I think, was kind of, not too worried about stuff. They were playing their backups a little bit more. But yeah, they went on a little string of goals for themselves. They go, 12-9, and then they actually scored 3 more times. I mean, they were just kind of hitting a good stride at the end a little bit. Unfortunately, it was a little too late. They ended up, getting down what it was like 21-12. It was still a good amount of time, like a few minutes left. But after that, I mean, we just kind of shut it down and said, all right, this game's over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cam McLeod, unfortunately, the last 3 goals on that run were on him to get the famous Rush album score.
Right.
But they were still, well, like you said, at that point, I think they knew with the win in hand, they weren't going to play super aggressively. And Kells actually, he finally made, I shouldn't say finally, but according to my eye test, he finally was able to make a series of good saves against Panther City's guys. And I think that's part of why Sean Williams left him in there for as long as he did, because it's like no matter what the score, you want to do a good job in net.
Well, and it almost reminded me of a game in our first season. I mean, I know you're comparing their second season to our first season, but we had a game, I think it was, against Vancouver, where, we just got blown out. It was like the final score was like 17-9 or something like that. And I just remember the team had to experience that. They had to go through it again because it's a growing moment. It's a good way to learn. I guarantee you this, so final 21-12, Vegas, I don't think will not let that happen again this year. They were coming off that big win against San Diego, obviously that overtime win against us, not too before that, and they had some good highs, but this is definitely their lowest of lows. But it was a high for us.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that was pointed out too, I think they were missing their face-off specialist. Coincidentally, Tyler Burton's been out for us this entire year, and Puch has kind of developed in that face-off specialist role for us. So maybe the same way Panther City's backups and guys that might not have been in the regular rotation at full strength, the same way they are able to get run, maybe Las Vegas will kind of have the same experience on there and just get guys more battle ready and able to contribute whenever their number's called.
Well, I definitely think this is a game both teams can walk away from with some learning experience. But, we had a first half Mr. Andrews stats of the game. Are we going to consider this the second half stats of the game, or the rest of the game?
This is, if this was the 90s and we were putting the set on videotape, this would be on the second VHS in the collection.
This is where they tell you to take the tape out, put in tape number 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, again, this is showing our age. I don't know. Did you ever watch the Titanic on?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of. We had that on the shelf.
You get halfway through and it's like, you lay now, insert tape number 2.
Yep. Get ready for that iceberg. Here it comes.
Right. Well, so yes, this is the second part of Mr. Andrew's stats of the game. Mr. Andrew, what do you have for this stats?
Honestly, more of the same. So Panther City, after the first half, they had 12 more shots on goal. They ended the game with 11 more, 54-45. We mentioned that Las Vegas went on a run late in the fourth quarter, but it was too little too late at that point. We ended the first half tied for face-offs. After the entire game, we actually won face-offs overall 20-37, so a little over 50%. Ronan Puch, again, he's looking good in the dot. We know he's not necessarily going to win over 50% in every game, but giving us a chance in there has been really big, because I think last time we played Vegas, I'm pretty sure they destroyed us when we were still doing things by committee. So real nice to see that. Lucy's, the gap grew even larger. We ended up getting 20 more loose balls to them, 81-61, which is a pretty remarkable margin. There were a lot of penalty minutes for Panther City with 17, but almost double that for Las Vegas with 32. And so it's, on our end, we mentioned after the first half that the higher kind of unnecessary penalties were the one thing that Panther City probably could have cleaned up on. Thankfully, in this game, we didn't really have to clean up on it, because Vegas just kind of kept shooting themselves on the foot in that regard. Obviously, they were probably pissed and wanting to get like, well, if we're going to lose this, we're gonna get our licks in and whatnot. But yeah, that directly led to a 5-goal power play goal discrepancy. They only converted 25% of theirs. They got 1 power play goal out of 4 chances, whereas Panther City got 6 out of 11. So I'm pretty sure that's just going to boost our league-leading power play goal tally even higher. Now, all these stats so far have been on the team side, but there's quite a few individual stats as well. We'll start with the goalies, because we haven't, we usually talk about Damien a bit more than we did. This game was very much an offensive onslaught, so guys like Showtime are going to get a lot of shine, but Damien, he did pretty solid. He saved 29 of 38 shots on goal. The fact that our defense and our offense, for that matter, with all those offensive boards, were able to keep it to where he didn't have to face like somewhere in the high 40s or 50s in terms of shots on goal. Pretty nice. Landon Kells on the other side, he was only able to save 32 out of 50 for 64%, which is definitely not going to win you many games in this league. And one reason why he entered the game, his backup, Joel Watson, didn't fare much better. He actually had a sub 500 save percentage. He went 2 for 5 for 40%. And I think the announcer said that he's kind of more in the mold of a big-bodied goalie that kind of takes up a lot of space there, kind of like Alex Bouquet would have been last year. And so that might have played into why eventually they put Kells back in to finish out the game, just to give him more run, if he's probably who they're going to go with primarily the rest of the season. But just so, yeah, in that sense, Damude and the few minutes that Cam McLeod got near the end, they definitely won the goalie battle. One career note for Liam Patton, he took a lick in that game, but he also finished with 300 career Lucy's, so hats off to Patton for that. I think he ended up getting the hard hat from Coach TK after the game, so credit to him for doing that. They mentioned this, I think, when Foley was down with his injury. He's actually leading the team in defensive shooting percentage and goals prevented as well.
What?
And so I think that Patton having a good game, Hosek coming back, it kind of was the perfect storm on defense as well as offense. Speaking of offense, it's what we love to see, a lot of big numbers. We mentioned before, there, interestingly enough, weren't really goals in transition for Panther City, but it didn't really matter with how many 5-on-5 and power play goals we were getting. Crawford, he ended up finishing with 15 points, 8 goals, and 7 assists, 2 shy off the league record. He was 2 shy off of the 10-goal record as well. And then Will Malcom, as good a night as Crawford had with chasing these records, Will Malcom really wasn't that far behind. He had 14 points for 4 goals and off of 4 goals and 10 assists. And that, between Crawford's 15 and Malcolm's 14, is the most combined points by 2 teammates in league history at 29. I think the previous record was either 28 or 27. So hats off to them, and even more impressive considering that Crawford didn't finish the game. I think when they pulled him, there was almost half of the third quarter left. So pretty crazy. Again, he now has a league record for points and a half at 12, and he's the only player in league history with multiple 14-point games in the regular season. So pretty crazy. And then, oh, by the way, Will Malcolm's 10 assists, that's a career high for him. So just each time I think I'm done saying something, it's like, oh, by the way, this guy also did this. And it's funny because Donville had 8 points and Gauthier had 8 points. Caputo had 6. But it's almost like, because of how much Crawford and Malcom, how much damage they were doing, it's like those numbers are kind of ho-hum. They're just like, oh, well, that's all right. That'd be like a great game for basically any player. But just because Crawford and Malcom went crazy, it's been overshadowed a little. But they had great games as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, that's why I said earlier that I wonder if they listen to the podcast. I threw my challenge out to Will Malcom last week. I said, hey, show me something. Guess what? Again, for lack of better words, he, showed me something. And even if Crawford wasn't there with all those points, yeah, I mean, Will Malcom had himself a record night too. If Crawford isn't there to get all those goals, those announcers would be talking about him breaking a record, Yeah,
absolutely.
So, and which it made me think. I was trying to look it up real quick. You talked about the combined points in a game. I actually think that record was set by Panther City last year. Was it last year or something like that? I know there was a game where we set a record with most combined points, possibly.
I thought by so. Teammates?
Was it last year? Maybe it wasn't last year.
I'm not too sure. I know there were games when Donville and Malcom both lit it up.
Yeah,
I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, I thought it was last year. Maybe it might have been the year before, or maybe I'm thinking differently. But anyway, well, of course, that is Mr. Andrews' second half stats in the game.
Yeah, a little bit longer than usual. I mean, it's the nature of the game.
Combined, like you said, I mean, pretty much the stats in the first half was a full game, and then you have the second half of another game. So, well, that of course, brings us to our Cool Cat plays of the game. There's way too many to choose from, to be honest.
Absolutely.
I could talk about, Will Malcom, any one of his goals. I could talk about even Knox getting that goal in the fourth. That was a really good one. Caputo, gosh dang. Look, I want to go for Crawford, but I do have to give Caputo a little bit of credit here. His rebound and behind the back shot, I thought was just amazing. I thought that was good, and then obviously Crawford feeding him the ball with his shot. Yeah, I'm gonna give Caputo my Cool Cat plays of the game because I think we all know who had an amazing night, but he had an amazing night too. So, what about for you? What about your play of the game?
That last one you mentioned is actually mine. Crawford's behind the back assist to Caputo. Just because as much as I love Caputo rebounding and kind of making lemons out of lemonade, him and Goat both do that a lot. I do like it when an assist directly leads to a goal that close in net. It just shows how in sync players are. And it's kind of funny, for as amazing as Crawford's goal scoring is sometimes lost in that is how great a passer he is. And for guys like him and Caputo to be able to react that quickly on the fly, whether it's finding a guy with an open pass, a behind the back pass at that, getting a shot in traffic when you know it's almost like a quarterback in the pocket. He knows he's going to get decked and take the hit, but he's still able to shoot the ball in time. It's really nice. And so in a night filled with plenty of great plays, that would be mine.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, so the NLL came out with their plays of the week. I think that was number 2 was that play. We made it. 2 of our plays made it on this week's countdown. So yeah, there's a reason for that because it just makes it look so good. But that's our cool cap plays of the game. Look, we're gonna talk about our big cap players of the game. I'll let you go first because I think mine is going to be a little bit different than what we think.
Okay, well, mine are probably going to be pretty predictable, I imagine. First off, gotta give love to Will Malcom. He had an excellent game. Caputo had a great game. The defense overall, they're perpetually the unsung heroes compared to the guys putting up points in Daymute and net, getting big save numbers. So hats off, to Patton, Connor Sellers, Evan Messenger, Dylan Hutchinson, Matt Hosick. Props to him for coming back. He took a pretty hard hit there too at one point. Hopefully Patrick Foley's doing okay. But we've been talking about him the entire show, and I got to go with Showtime. He scored as many goals as the Desert Dogs did in 3 quarters compared to their 4 quarters. Oh, less than 3 quarters played because he didn't even play all of the third. And he scored as many goals as the Desert Dogs were able to do in the entire game. 15 points, 8 goals on 9 attempts is insane. Usually if you finish a little under 50%, you're like, oh, that's a good night. This guy just blew that kind of percentage out of the water. He had a treasure trove of personal, team, and league records. So, I mean, what more can you say? I hope, Crawford's 39 right now. He just reminds me of some of the, back when I was a huge basketball nut, just players that I really didn't want to retire. I remember how sad I was when like Tim Duncan or some of these other guys I grew up watching played. I feel the same way about Crawford. I'm like, I know you're getting up there, and I know his final goal is a ring. Hopefully him and Panther City get there, but regardless of any of that, man, it is a joy to watch this guy play lacrosse.
Yeah, look, Crawford is just a special talent. He knows what to do. He knows how to do it effectively, and he does it night in and night out. I mean, there's a reason he's been in the league for so long. It's because he's shown up and he's adapted and he's gotten better. Look, you're right. We might not have the biggest experience with the NLL, but I will say this. I know sports, and I know people. There's very few people, very few players at this age doing what they can, doing the best that they can at this age. If you talk about football, of course, you think of Tom Brady or even like a Brett Favre, even, in his older years. Right now, Aaron Rodgers, even though he's had injury problems, he's up there in age. Talk about basketball, LeBron, even, Kobe when he was, in his later years. Dirk, you talking about Tim Duncan, I mean, it takes a special talent to be this good this late in your career. Look, I would say Crawford would be my player of the game. I am going to go the opposite direction. I am going to talk about the unsung hero. He is my man. He is the one that I'm going to talk about all year, every year. Daymute, look, let me tell you, when you can keep a team to 3 goals in the first half, and then only allow, 3 more goals in the third quarter before you're taken out? Wait, it wasn't 3 goals. It was he allowed 9 before he got pulled, right?
Yeah.
Still, 9 goals, allowing
single digits is impressive.
And in a game where obviously the offense is going to get highlighted and the offense is going to be, celebrated. Look, he's had 2 really good comeback games after being pulled. And if he can keep this going, that's where Panther City needs to strive. Obviously, their offense is starting to click. Now we need that defense to keep its momentum going. So I'm actually going to give Damoud his flowers on this one. Really good game by him. And really good blocks. I mean, there was some really good shots, and especially in the second half, there's some really good shots that Vegas got off, and he was blocking them. So I will say, Damoud, you are my big cat player of this game, even though it's probably not the popular choice.
Well, this was a Nick Damoud appreciation podcast. That's one thing we've been consistent with over the past couple of seasons.
I mean, he consistently shows that he can go through adversity and get better from it. And so,
yeah, absolutely.
Well, final thoughts on this game. My rundown was Crawford. I mean, making history look easy. I mean, he could just, he just does it like nobody else can. Malcom, look, I don't know. Well, Malcom, I don't know if you listened to us or not, but that was a damn great night by you as well. Damoud, like I said, really good defense, shutting Vegas down. I will say, I think we do need to keep the energy going throughout the full game. We did kind of get a little bit lax, and we did let their emotions get to us, but just overall, just a crazy game for us. What about for you?
Yeah, just echoing what you said on everything. Crawford made things look easy. Malcom right behind him. Damoud having a solid game. This is the most cohesive the offense has looked all season, and this might be, if not the absolute best, and certainly one of the best games that the defense has played all year long too. Obviously, Vegas is a younger team, but I mean they beat us the last time we played, and they've certainly had their share of good wins this year as well, and so far this year. So yeah, I think that having Hossack back is huge. Bren Mitchell, obviously he got into some fisticuffs here and there, but it was nice to have, more or less, with the exception of Tyler Burton, nice to have basically a full roster on the defensive end. Now, I hope that guys like Foley and Patton are going to be all right going into the game against Saskatchewan.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping.
But yeah, so penalties and the extracurriculars aside, I think that was the most complete game we've had all season.
Well, and it wasn't like it was so lopsided for the offense. I mean, but yeah, I mean, both sides were just, they were doing what they needed to do. So, well, we leave the offensive slaughter that was Vegas, and we go, like you said, we finish our long string of road trips as we go north towards Saskatchewan, and we're taking on the newly updated branded Rush. That game's on February 3rd, evening game. I wanted to take 2 seconds real quick and just touch on, we saw the Rush go through kind of a slight rebranding before the season. I mean, what are your thoughts about their new brand?
I like the symmetry of it. I think it's all right. It is kind of an interesting choice with the color scheme and everything. Just having that bison be that bright green color. So yeah, I don't hate it. Like, I guess Panther City is Las Vegas's in a lot of Albany's. In a lot of ways, I like those more than just kind of the Calgary or Buffalo, or where it's like a guy holding a stick.
Right.
If you're going to go asymmetrical, then I don't know. Halifax or the Mammoth might be my favorite. But anyway, yeah, it's good enough to where I'm almost having trouble remembering what the original one looked like.
Well, it was just I don't think they really had like a mascot per se, but it was just the black. It was mainly black.
It was like the R,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
yeah, the R that kind of had the swoop at the bottom.
Yeah. So I mean, I think this creates a better identity for them. Probably something they were missing in the previous seasons. But yeah, I would say their choice in green is a little strong. In fact, if you follow us on X/Twitter, I even posted a tweet about it, like the Jerry Seinfeld meme, where like there's a bright light coming from the room, and it's like, what is that, Jerry? Or he's like, what is that, Kramer? It's a Saskatchewan Rush field, Jerry. Come on.
Oh shoot, yeah, and we are playing them in Saskatchewan, so it'll be, I think they weren't. I don't think they made the playoffs last year, but they were at least a 500 team. And part of me wonders how much of as difficult as it might be for road teams to play on that field or that court,
especially
whatever you
with
want
their
to call
jerseys
it.
That bright green too.
Yeah. As much as Panther City or other teams might have trouble playing on it, I wonder if they're not used to it either.
Right. Well, it's the same thing happened with, like, you want to talk about another sport that's similar. Boise State, when they changed their field to blue,
the Smurf turf.
Yeah. They had the same issue right off the bat. They were having trouble because their jerseys were the exact same color as the field, and that's why they ended up changing their jerseys to like an orange to offset the blue. But
it is.
Anyway, I think it's a good brand. I hope between this season and next, maybe they tone down the green just slightly. I think the green they had before was probably a little bit darker and a little bit nicer. But anyway, rebranding aside, unfortunately, we go to Saskatchewan and we are facing a couple of familiar faces. Of course, we talked about in the offseason when Griniak got traded up there. But of course, Patrick Dodds actually having probably a pretty good season up there. We're going to face our kind of our big rookie from our first year. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
It'll be weird because Patrick was an important part of the team for a while. When Griniak didn't get quite as much run in his time with us, but he still had some iconic goal. He actually, when I see Knox, it reminds me of when Griniak, just some of those times where he rears the ball back and shoots it, like with so much power. So a little bittersweet playing them, but that the Rush aren't doing too great so far this year. I think losing, they released Alex Bouquet, which was kind of a bit of a surprising move, but they also got Frank Ciliano from San Diego. I think they let him go because Chris
Origlieri.
I'm going to butcher this. Yeah, Origlieri is playing so well after he took Ciliano's starting position last year. So I don't think that those moves have quite panned out the way they would. And obviously Dodds is new to them, Dodds and Griniak, so they might kind of still be trying to find their footing as a team.
Well, I'll say this real quick. I think it almost unfortunately works towards Saskatchewan advantage just slightly, because Dodds knows and when Griniak knows what Panther City likes to do, and I hate to say it, but I think they can almost plan for us a little bit more than we can plan for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, interesting. I can see that. Whether I'd be curious to see whether that actually makes a difference in the end results. But yeah, I can see what you're getting at.
I mean, just a little bit. They could probably give them a little bit of insight on what they like to favor more. But again, we are talking about an offense that just put up 21 points against Vegas. So obviously they're doing things a little bit differently than they were when Dodds and when Griniak were there. I will say, coming off of this win, I think it's really important for Panther City to keep everything going the way it was. In fact, we've had it the last few times. We've had this segment where, hey, show me something. And I'm going to make mine very general. And this is, kind of quick and to the point. But I'm going to say, show me something Panther City. We've seen games where you have a great offensive game. We saw it last year against Vegas again. And then we kind of like dropped that momentum for a while. And then we had to build it back up as the season went on. And we eventually made the playoffs. But we're at almost to the midway point, or we're getting there. I want Panther City to show me this is no fluke. I want them to show me that their win in Vegas and how they won is not a one-off. If they came into this game against Saskatchewan and we're playing like we were 4 or 5 weeks ago, we have a really good chance of losing. I want you guys to show me, hey, this is how we're going to do things now. So that for me is something I want to see. Anything for you?
Like you said, that certainly that wanting to prove that this isn't a fluke. Because I will say, despite the success last year, one could say that, okay, Panther City beat the teams that we would have expected them to beat, and they lost to who we would have expected them to lose to. This year, we lost to Toronto earlier. We lost to Las Vegas earlier as well. So you really want us to do well regardless of who's in front of us and just show what we're capable of. Obviously, we did that in that revenge game against Las Vegas on their turf. Hopefully, we can do the same when we go up to Saskatoon.
Yeah, well, and I hope we do get to see that. I mean, for me, I will say my expectations. I feel like as much as I want another 21-point game, I feel like that's not going to happen again. Especially 2 games in a row. Although if it did, hey, I'm not going to say anything against it. But I will say I think the offense is starting to find a good rhythm with each other. And I think that's something we can continue into this one. But I think Saskatchewan will be ready for us. I think they are a tougher team, obviously, than Vegas. So I'm going to say a win. I just feel like it's about time for offenses to go blow for blow against each other. I'm going to say we do win. Maybe not 21 points, but I'm going to say maybe a 14-12. That would be my guess.
It's interesting because I think, at least going by their record, I would consider Saskatchewan either at Vegas' level or maybe a little lower, to where they're kind of, I feel like they're underperforming expectations a little bit, whereas Vegas is, I'm not going to say they're ahead of schedule in their second year, but they're kind of doing what we expected. So in terms of what that means for us, I don't think a lot of it does depend on how banged up our defense is, I think. But if Patton and Foley and Haas and the rest of the guys are feeling good, then I think we're going to win. I won't say handily, but comfortably. I think we'll probably win 16-11.
16-11, so a 5-point spread. Okay. I mean, hey, yeah, if our offense shows up like it did against Vegas, then yeah, we can very much do that. I want that to be the usual, but we'll see what happens. I look forward to this game. I just want to see us riding a high when we get back home at our next home game, because after this win against Vegas, I think a good win against Saskatchewan will be exactly what we need. But a couple more things I want to touch on real quick. So the power rankings came out this week. We moved up to the 5 spot. So, we're getting there. We're still not up in that upper echelon just yet, but we're kind of slowly working our way up the power rankings, which I think shows just what the NLL thinks about us. They think we're definitely moving not only in the right direction, but moving in the right direction towards those elite teams.
Yeah, definitely turning heads. I know when we first showed up in the rankings 2 weeks ago, whoever does them was like, hey, I know we have Panther City's got a losing record, but every game that they've been in has been a winnable game. Like the tough loss to Vegas, Toronto, we were up in the fourth quarter before they went on a run. So it's nice to see us. Yeah, fifth has got to be the highest ranking ever. I don't think that was ever the case last year, certainly not rookie season. So to see us sandwiched in between Buffalo and Halifax, above Georgia, who beat us as well, and who's kind of showing some inconsistency. It's pretty cool to see, and honestly, it's even cool seeing the Riptide round out the power rankings at number 8. Well, with the struggles they've had, they were really turning a corner as of late as well.
Yeah, pretty much ahead of us is Buffalo, Albany, Toronto, who actually went down a spot, and then San Diego at number 1. So I think it just, like you said, it goes to show that whoever is making these power rankings looks at a lot more than just the record. They look at
You're right.
how the team is doing, how they're looking, how they're playing, kind of where they're going with as a whole. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Rochester was. There may be some salty Rochester fans that how's this below 400, below 500 team making the rankings and we aren't. But hey, in terms of Panther City, it's great to see. And again, like, we're ranked number 5 right now. Again, these don't really mean anything, but you would hate to see us blow a game to Saskatchewan, who's in the bottom of the standings, and just not see us up there.
Yeah, exactly.
The following week.
Well, and I hope after this week we can continue to move up in the rankings. But so that came out, and then of course the NLL Offensive Player of the Week. Did we have any doubt? I mean, it was Callum Crawford, of course.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like, who else would you have picked to be the Player of the Week? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I don't think they could have gone wrong. Even though he came short of the all-time full game record, he certainly made his presence felt through the 2.5 quarters that he did play. So nice to see him get props this late in his career. Hopefully not this late in his career. Hopefully he goes another 15 years
right,
or so.
Right. Somehow, at the age 50, still, getting eight goals a night or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, we leave Las Vegas. We go towards Saskatchewan. Let's hope, honestly, that Panther City can keep this string of offensive dominance going. I obviously want to see the defense continue to do well as well, but it does seem like Panther City is going in the right direction. As always, we thank you guys for listening. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, X, or Twitter, and YouTube. Be sure to check out our full videos on there. Also, check out our last video that we put on there where we took a look at Cowtown Brewery in Fort Worth, Texas. But once again, I'm Nicholas.
And I'm Andy.
And we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Cheers, y'all.